Уважаемые друзья, коллеги,
Dear friends and colleagues, I'm glad to welcome you in this hall. Now, I suggest that we get started. We should start on time. Because if we talk about digitization, we must be quite accurate. Now, with your permission, I would like to introduce today's speakers who are going to participate in our event. First of all, I would like to apologize before you on behalf of the organizers. Sergey Pavlov, the first deputy of CEO of Russian Railways, will be slightly late. I think we'll give the floor to him after he comes from the negotiations. Now, then I would like to introduce a representative of the organization of cooperation between Russian Railways, Mirosław Antonowicz, who is going to join us online. I hope that all people who are joining us remotely, yes, I can see you, great. So, welcome, gentlemen. Next, please welcome Mr. François Davenne. He represents the UNECE, the International Union of Railways. Our next speaker, who's going to join us also, is Mr. Herman Maslow, Vice President of the Linear and Logistics Division of the Festa Transport Group. Then I would like to introduce Mr. Francesco Dionori. Francesco, he's head of the section of Transportation Networks and Logistics of the Sustainable Transport Department at the United Nations Committee. We have a very representative international panel today. Well, it is a major international event, isn't it? And we'll have representatives both of 1520, but also of 1435. Our next speaker is head of Siemens Mobility, Mr. Joachim Emmelheinz. Welcome, willkommen. I would also like to introduce to you Mr. The Deputy, Mr. Antonowicz, Deputy CEO of Scenario Transport Machines. We also have here CEO of Digital Technologies. I'm sorry for thinking it was Mr. Nikolai Rezvov. And we have here our colleagues, our chief partners on our international corridors that across the Eurasian Union. Mr. Temir Joly Baturkotorayev from Kazakhstan. Now, gentlemen, today we're going to discuss with you one of the most important issues on the agenda. The issue that was very extensively covered in the Russian Federation already, which affected the technology transformation after the pandemic. So we have seen that we have for many years have been wanting this, and now this has happened. So we wanted to serve at least 1 million transit containers a year. This figure was raised in negotiations for more than 10 years, but it's also quite an abstract figure. So nobody had an idea when we're going to reach this number, would it be 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years. But what has happened over the past 2 years has demonstrated that the trouble, the pandemic that happened could result into positive consequences. The breakdown of logistics changed the breakdown of the existing logistic corridors resulted into appearance of new corridors. And now it is for us important to support what we have been able to reach in the years 2020, 2021, to maintain this network. Now, I suggest that we do brief voting so that we keep alive after this very healthy lunch. Now, we see various obstacles preventing business, in particular transport business, from development. So, please show the QR code, which you can read, scan with your smartphones, and then you can cast a vote. All right, we will also show the questions on the screen. Now, what are the questions? What are the main... No, sorry, this is the wrong list. Now, the questions. What are the main obstacles for development of international railway transportation corridors? Regulatory restrictions and lack of coordination between the railway administrations? Or is it the quality of the digital environment and the cargo transportation control processes? Or is it gaps in the physical throughput facilities? Or is it a new issue on the agenda which has been gaining more and more importance over the past months, namely the lack of environmental assessment of environmental friendliness of railway transport versus the existing assessments of air transport and motor transport? Now, we would like to see what our guests think. Our audience, but also people joining us online, I encourage you to cast a vote. And then at the end of this discussion, after we have heard our speakers, we will cast our votes again. Now, as for the timing, we have unfortunately only 1 hour and 10 minutes. So, irrespective of the representative panel, I would ask all the speakers to observe the timing. Please do your best to word your concept in 5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes more, but overall this would be our main wish. Now, since Vice President of Russian Railways is going to join us a bit later, I invite Mr. Mirosław Antonowicz to open this event. Mirosław, you have the floor. Hello. Should I start? Yes. Our working languages are Russian and English. So you have the interpretation devices, Russian channel 1, English channel 2. Sorry, I couldn't hear you that well, but I'm going to speak Russian. I'm very glad to have this opportunity to join your representative meeting. You know, we didn't have that much time. So, we all know that one image is worth 1,000 words. So, please show the presentation that I wanted to share. I cannot see my presentation yet, unfortunately. You know, I would like to discuss the subject of transport corridors. So, ladies and gentlemen, one of the main areas of Russian Railways business is in international transport communications. Mirosław, I apologize. We have problems hearing you, unfortunately. Dear organizers, could you do something? Could you please get in touch with Mirosław to make the sound better? Their development, their improvements continue. The corridors must function seamlessly and continuously. The corridors must comply with international technical requirements. Therefore, they must be upgraded and modernized. Next slide, please. Right. Now, as you can see from this slide, a memorandum on cooperation has been signed for each and every corridor, which includes plans for technical and commercial development. We have outlined the plans, prepared roadmaps, and we have issued special technical data sheets. These documents provide a list of the steps for development. For instance, development of railway terminals and stations, in particular in corridors 1 and 9. Now, this slide, ladies and gentlemen, shows that the railway transport has got a lot of advantages versus other modes of transport. If we take one indicator alone, the cost of transportation, this alone is better than any other mode of transport. And in my opinion, a flexible tariff policy can be quite supportive. So will be the government policy, because it takes a lot of costs to maintain the railway infrastructure. And we all know that the railways are the safest mode of transport worldwide. Now, on the other hand, electrification of railway lines plays a major role here. We can see on this diagram that the Russian railways have been doing a lot over the past years in this respect, and more 140,000 kilometers have already been electrified. The total length of the railway network of all the railway partners is more than 100,000 kilometers. As we all know, ladies and gentlemen, to make railways competitive, we need to increase the energy efficiency and the quality of service offered to the clients. The railways grows owing to digitization and computerization of all the phases. And we need to introduce new technologies, not only to lay new electric lines, but also to introduce new innovative machines, new locomotives, hydrogen-based traction. We need to make wider use of alternative sources of energy and introduce other innovations. Alstom hybrid train is a very good example in this respect, which is already being used in Europe. Next slide, please. Now, in my opinion, the main challenges that we're facing with respect to digitalization and transformation are digital data, information technologies, automation of the processes, and the digital customer access. Now, as regards the logistics, I would like to add here that we need to be able to monitor the rolling stock. We need to be able to use unmanned aerial vehicles. We need to introduce smart cars. The same applies to systems for infrastructure monitoring and intelligent infrastructure. The next slides will show you examples of where we use our digitalization steps. Now, this slide lists what we do in the area of digitalization of management processes. We have done a lot already at the Russian railways. We have a standing working group. And together with Mr. Davenne, for instance, from the International Railway Union, we have been preparing plans to upgrade facilities, to improve settlements and financial processes. We have introduced various steps to increase the competitiveness of railways worldwide, and in particular in Eurasia and Europe. One more thing I would like to add to complete my presentation, that we have seen very important examples of digitalization, for instance, the digital invoice, which has already been introduced throughout the Eurasian Union. Another important example of digitalization is the IoT, Internet of Things, on the train. Intelligent car-based devices will share the information with the main server, for instance, about the payments. In my opinion, this increases the safety of trains and will help to bring quicker return on investments and increase the quality of service, improve the quality. Now, I also am convinced that at the end of the day, all that we're going to use, all that we're going to do, all these tools related to digitalization, they must help railways raise to a new level to be able to cope with the challenges of today and the future, and to be able to serve the railways clients at the best possible level. Now, in the year 2021, we are going to celebrate the 65th anniversary of our operations. I would like to add here that railway transport in Europe is also to celebrate. It has been announced the year of railways in Europe. In my opinion, these two major years are designed to point out that the railways are the most environmentally friendly, the most stable, and the safest mode of transport worldwide. I'm convinced that the railway transport can become carbon neutral by year 2050. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. Mirosław, thank you very much. Unfortunately, there was some problems with the sound, so we thank God there was a presentation. I hope that the sound will be slightly better when we listen to our other colleagues. Now I'd like to give floor to Mr. François Davenne, CEO of International Union of Railways. Mr. Davenne, we would be keen to hear your opinion, because you represent the European Union. You're based in Europe, you live in Europe. What is the opinion of the International Union of Railways on transformation, on environmental issues in particular, from the point of view of transportation, and what would the digit be able to do this in this respect? Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for giving me the floor today. I hope that the sound is good. That's a very hard question. First of all, I would like to say that I completely agree with what was said by Mirosław about the concrete step for improving the corridors. And it was part of my speech, so I will skip this part. I think we do agree about what needs to be done. And I will perhaps be a little bit more political, and also insisting on the fact that UIC is the only global organization for railways. We are indeed in Europe, we are in Paris, but we are global, and we have 6 regions from North America to Asia, Pacific, Africa, and Middle East. So we have a global vision, and I think that will be increasingly increasingly important to have a global vision on those subjects. Because there is a new reality, and this new reality is that now we have a sense of urgency for decarbonizing the transport system. We have all read the new IPCC report. We have all seen what did happen this summer in Russia, unfortunately also in France, in Greece, and in Canada. Climate change is now a reality. It was already a reality, but now we are touching the effects. And we are entering in a period where those phenomena will not be linear anymore. So we need to act, and we need to act fast. And from my point of view, that's what is quite new today. You know, this old joke for John Maynard Keynes about the economic crisis. In the long run, we will be all dead, meaning that we have to do things rapidly when there is an economic crisis. And I think there we have a climate crisis and we have to act rapidly. We have basically 10 years to act, and we need to mobilize what can be mobilized rapidly. And I think that for that, we have definitely an advantage in rail because we are already the most environmentally friendly mode of transport. We are part of the solution, but we need to demonstrate that indeed the measure have to be taken and have to be taken rapidly. From UIC perspective, we have two very important events that are coming rapidly. The COP26, when we try to build a narrative for rail. We have an international working group, an international task force about sustainability, which is actually global, where we are working on this narrative. And obviously we have next year our centenary. And I think our centenary will be really about what are the practical solutions. Well, as I said, Mirosław explained already what we have to do. We have to have clean fuel, we have to develop telematics, we have to develop coordination. But I think if we want to act fast, and I think that's the remit of UIC to be the forum where we can have this coordination, we need to select what are the transformational projects, what are the projects that will have on the short term a very big impact on the transport paradigm. And I think that's really what we have to do together within the railway community to be able to demonstrate, that's a little bit the narrative I was referring about, what are the key projects. Well, in UIC, we have developed already what we call the SDG, Development Goal Index, which is a comprehensive tool for attracting investment in rail with sound demonstration of our action as railways for reaching the UN SDGs. What I will say about what could be those transformational projects. First of all, I will start with the question of international corridor. We have to identify bottlenecks, and I think Mirosław explained that very well. And concerning the administrative bottlenecks, I think not only Mirosław, but also Francesco Dionori will explain this relatively complex legal system, so I will not enter into that. But what for me is important is now we have the digital tool to overcome the different and sometimes conflicting legislation. So we have to work together about, well, let's say, digital platforms, in particular for freight. We are working on that in UIC in the European region, but we definitely want to interconnect those digital platforms. And normally, if we are wise enough, we will be able to overcome those difficulties without waiting what will be necessary, the revision of the convention, but it will take a time that I think we don't have anymore. Concerning the physical bottlenecks, so once again, I will not redo the very good speech of Mirosław, but I think what is very important is what he said about intelligent infrastructure. We need to make our networks more clever. We need to implement automatic train operation, and we need to make them actual networks that are communicating with other mode of transport in order to have an integrated logistics chain. Well, good news is that we have the technical tools for that. Speaking from the UIC side, we are finishing to develop the future rail mobile communication system. That will be a very important development because it will provide a 5G backbone for railway, allowing the implementation of innovative network management solutions. That's a major opportunity to converge the applications managing the operation for any type of guided rail mobility. It will simplify numerous technical aspects of intermodality between railways and other modes. And obviously, it will be one of the main support for ATO because we will need very big bandwidths for having ATO in real configuration. Secondly, we are active on the modeling of the rail system. That will be also a key issue for developing a shared vision of the architecture of the railway and favoring modularity of railway components. Third, we are launching a very pioneering and ambitious project on artificial intelligence. Well, it can seem abstract, but I think those three processes, they will allow to work on what we can call digital twins, meaning that we could simulate key decision for the networks, not in days, which is basically today's the rhythm we are, in hours, but in minutes. So we will be able to have real-time management of our networks, and that will be great opportunity to increase the capacity of our network because the rapidity of decision, the rapidity of management will be key for increasing the capacity. Well, the next very important question will be, from my point of view, the question
François, прошу прощения, у меня...
François, I'm sorry. Just 1 minute more and you'll have to finish.
It will be to work on operational resilience and in particular on predictive maintenance. And that's also a very important work stream within UIC. My conclusion will be that we have all the tools. We have just to work together and to define a narrative and a roadmap. And I will finish about one word, which is very important from my point of view, from a political point of view. We are the most frugal mode of transport for land transport. We have to sell this competitive advantage because we have to spare energy. That's the only solution to cope with the climate change. And rail is part of the solution because we are frugal. So thank you for your attention. Hope I haven't been too long. Thank you.
François, thank you very much. In fact, it was very interesting. You touched upon key directions of our today's discussion. And I next like to give the floor to German Maslov, since we have fitting the bill between those who determine policies in different areas and those who realize those projects, such as Intertrans, Smart Card, and so on. Herman, please. Good afternoon, everyone. Do you hear me well? Herman? Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Yes, Herman, we can hear you. Please. Thank you, everyone. I'm as the representative of logistical industry from Francesco, the company that works with marine transportation and railway transportation. I will note that we were the company that happened to be on the front line. The front line of, one can say, war, the logistical war, the Armageddon that happened within last year. I'm sure that all industry and my colleagues from other companies, all transport industry, saw absolutely tectonic changes in the process and procedure of the freight convenience that happened in 2020 and continues in 2021. Please switch to the next slide, please. On this map, you can see red line in the bottom is conveyance of cargo that was conducted earlier from the ports of Japan, Korea, China to Europe, even 3 years or 2.5 years ago. That was practically the only route for cargo from Asian countries transported to Europe. After known events in Suez Channel, when it was blocked for a week, we received a great number of requests from our clients asking to transport cargo to Europe through the territory of the Russian Federation, unquestionably by rail transport. I agree with Mirosław Antonowicz, who spoke before me. It's difficult overappreciate the importance of railway. What did we see in the requests of our customers? Our customers stopped using just one road of delivery of their cargo. We see an array of requests to deliver cargo, and the blue lines, blue arrows show how to deliver the cargo across Russia to Europe from Asia. And that was in the beginning of COVID-19. These are variants of pure railway delivery, and so intermodal also delivery using railway and also by sea. This delivery that allows to organize transportation of cargo in the shortest period of time with the help of the Russian railways safely, quickly, and with reliable fixed schedule. Also, I'd like to note, the next slide, please. This is what I want to say, the railway transportation, the cargo over railway is the most environmentally friendly mode of transport in comparison to other modes of transport. In the table in the bottom, we compare transportation from largest seaports of Asia to Danzig, and the CO2 emission per one container. We see that minimum is received if we transport through the territory of Russian Federation via railway. I'm saying Russian Federation because we are first of all users of the network of Russian railways that assumed the duty and the challenge and additional volumes of hundreds of thousands of containers that travel through Trans-Sea to Europe. Next slide, please. One of the topics of our discussions is digitalization. I'm sure that without development of digital twin, without personal office, digital services and logistics, very few companies were able to survive the situation that we had last year. We developed, if you talk about specifically about Fesco, our company, we developed personal office. I couldn't even have a vision how it fits the new requirements and new realities. With presence of personal office, you don't need to go anywhere. You don't want to carry documents, your papers. You can do it in your computer. In the bottom, you see the number of the requests that went through our office and the growth since 2019 till 2021. Number of the customers grew by the factor of more than 2 who organized the operation through the personal office. Number of the orders grew by more than 70%. Also, I'd like to note that our joint project with the Russian railways is technology of smart contract. Back in Tutran, I already stated on different venues. This project allows to organize document-less organization of transportation of cargoes, considering restrictions. The future, and I agree with Mr. François, the future is automation. We have to be in digital. We have to provide our customer services not only of communication with employees, but we should offer variants of the digital roads of transferring digital contracts. Hammond, I'm sorry, 1 minute, please. Here you can see that what we will invest. I'm showing the ads of our company. I'm sure that majority of the audience are looking into the same direction. We plan to acquire terminals in the Russian Federation. We believe it's important to provide full spectrum of services, not only transportation, but also car delivery, truck delivery, last mile storage. We increased the fleet of the flat cars by 1,000 units. We see a substantial increase of the volume of transportation and flow from deep sea that happened through Suez Channel onto railway. We possess Vladivostok seaport, and we adopted a program that allows to expand the capacity up to 1 million tons. In 2021, we expect that the port will have 700,000. The same bottlenecks known well to us and others, and everyone sees what is happening in the seaports. The key hindrance happens even there. We increase container fleet.
We've been increasing our container pool. We've been procuring new facilities. We have introduced the FESCO supply chain project, which will enable our clients to buy end-to-end service with the broadest possible range of services offered. Thank you. Yes, Herman, thank you very much. A very interesting speech, a very interesting story. You have mentioned FESCO supply chain, for instance, which is a very interesting experience. Now, you have described very concrete projects in the digitalization area. And now I'd like to give floor to a representative of the European Economic Commission of the United Nations, Mr. Francesco Dionori. Mr. Dionori, could you please tell us, in particular, how the European Economic Committee looks at the process of environmental transformation of the transport that we will have to undertake and all the aspects that are related to it? You are one of the main intergovernmental players who are going to determine the policy in this respect.
First of all, thank you very much. I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me to intervene here today. It is, of course, a great honor to be representing UNECE on this panel with such distinguished speakers, and I look forward to, of course, continuing the very thought-provoking discussion that has already been started by the colleagues who came before me. Well, as you know, UNECE is custodian to 59 conventions and legal agreements aimed at facilitating freight and passenger transport across the region and across all inland transport modes. These conventions, of course, are fundamental to the development of international transport corridors, even more so in the current pandemic and hopefully in the very soon post-pandemic environment. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to click on the QR code to vote on before, but I don't think you'd be surprised to see that I would have chosen, of course, the regulatory option as the answer in the survey. Of course, the regulatory framework that has been developed across the various transport modes and the work that we do at ECE has been focused and supported by a number of projects. One of these is the Eurasian Transport Links project, with a specific aim of facilitating the development of corridors across our region. And the aim of these corridors really is to concentrate long-distance travel on key high-capacity infrastructure. That is, as much as possible, harmonized in order to facilitate the movement of freight, but importantly also passengers. The aim really is to move more and to do so in a more sustainable manner, through where possible switching to rail transport where it is available, and to provide a viable and strong alternative to sea transport. We've seen from the previous speaker that this is already well underway. And of course, at the same time, maximizing the use of technology that makes these long journeys across the continent more cost effective. In the corridors that were examined as part of this work, it was clear that in most cases they were actually faster and more cost effective through inland modes of transport than through sea-based alternatives. In fact, I warmly encourage you to look through the various phases of the EATL project and review its conclusions, and also the work that is currently ongoing in operationalizing these corridors, with discussions ongoing on efficient corridor management. As part of this work, a number of barriers have been identified as hindering the development of corridors. In this framework, of course, harmonization remains a key problem from a technical, operational, and administrative point of view. On the technical front, I think we've already heard a lot, both from Mirosław and François on the side of the infrastructure. So I will not repeat this, and I think I will move directly on to the rest of what I was going to say. And of course, the focus from my side, as mentioned at the start, really is on the administrative front, where there is a lot that we can do and that we can do fairly quickly. As a first step, of course, there is a need to unify railway regimes under one umbrella. Member states at UNECE are in the process of finalizing the creation of what we call unified railway law, with the aim of creating one legal regime, one contract of carriage, and one liability regime across the region, very much seeking to bring together the SIM and the SMGS systems. This will facilitate, I guess, a step change increase in freight transport on the railways, and we hope and we expect also significantly reduce administrative costs. From the operational point of view, of course, it's clear that productivity needs to increase for railway operations in terms of such things as train lengths and weights, but also improve scheduling and better use of capacity. And again, I think that's something that François and Mirosław mentioned before. It is important also that consideration is given to corridor-specific work plans and coordination efforts also mentioned by François. For example, things that are already being undertaken, such as across the Trans-Siberian with CCTT. Here, of course, the role of technology is and will continue to be very fundamental. The use of ITS to make operations more efficient and productive will further revolutionize our region. As well as, of course, the digitalization of transport documents, the full computerization of border crossing points, satellite-based tracking and tracing, and where possible, the introduction of autonomous vehicles. We have already seen much progress in the area with, for example, the introduction of the E-tier system developed at ECE, which is already starting to provide real benefits to operators wishing to transit through corridors and border crossing points. Technology, though, also has a very important role to play in climate change and in mitigating the harmful effects of extreme climatic events, causing disruption to transport. And UNECE has been working extensively on this through the identification of transport assets that are at risk of climate impacts, with the aim really of assessing the impact on infrastructure and operations going forward. As we've heard before, also, these climatic impacts are not in the long run. What did François say? He said in the long run, we are all dead. And in fact, yes, because these are all very much short-term impacts that we need to address. So in conclusion, really, the development of corridors is fundamental to the fast and effective recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. But in order for the corridors to be effective, they need to be supported by a robust regulatory framework that can work towards resolving these administrative, technical, and operational barriers that really continue to hinder the movement of freight and also passengers. And really, our cumulative goal is very much also driven through these aspects, through these regulatory aspects, also to push for sustainability and, of course, the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you again to the organizers for allowing me to intervene today. I hope I didn't take too long.
Спасибо.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Sergey Pavlov, first deputy of the CEO of Russian Railways, is here already. Therefore, I would like to give floor to him. But before I give floor to you, Sergey, I would like to say that we have been discussing the issues on the agenda. Ecology, the corridor development, technologies. Now, you represent the largest player with respect to the length of railways in Eastern Europe. So, could you please share your opinion, the opinion of Russian Railways in this respect? Thank you. Dear discussion participants, dear Vladimir, as you quite rightly mentioned, the Russian Railways holding has indeed been developing, and the volume of transportation has been going exponentially. Last year, for instance, it grew 1/3, and in the first 7 months of this year, we already have seen a double growth. 50% growth. And we have quadrupled our transportation in the past 5 years. China to Europe to China is the most active route, and the volume of transportation has grown 7 times over the past 5 months. And this past 7 months, the growth was 55% more. Now, at the end of the year, we intend to reach a number of at least 1 million TFR in transit. And by year 2024, so far our expectations is 1.7. Now, today, the conditions of transportation by railway are much better, as you can see on the screen, than our competition can offer. In the first panel discussion, we discussed today what challenges are we facing and what opportunities can we use. Now, one of the challenges and one of the opportunities are right there, and we must definitely use it. We exceed the sea operators both in terms of the speed, but also in terms of reliability and the regularity of our shipments. Starting from the end of last year, we have also exceeded them in terms of the price. And you can see from the numbers that we're 3 times as better as there. And we're dozens of times more affordable than the aviation transport. And today it is absolutely clear to anybody that there's no alternative to the railways, either from the point of view of ecology or from, for instance, when you transport one container from Shanghai to Wien, the emissions of the CO2 are 16 times as low as when transported by sea, and 70 times as low as by air. Including the railway links into the global routes is a very important step towards protecting the ecology and conserving the nature. Russian Railways joined the Sustainable Development Declaration last year. We expressed our commitment to reach carbon neutrality and to make our contribution to the Paris Accord. We are the world's #1 in terms of energy efficiency of cargo transportation. And we already discussed today at our meeting with the management of Finnish railways that owing to the recuperative braking alone, which we use at the Russian railways, we have been able to return 2.6 billion of kilowatt hours into the national grid, which is almost 1% of the total consumption of energy in Finland. Now, all the main processes at the company are based on the responsible investment in ECG processes. And in these, Russian Railways are one of the top 5 companies in Russia. The company is also a very clear lead in terms of financial investments. Last year, for instance, we issued green bonds and social bonds. And this year, we issued Russia's green euro bonds. And this money is used to develop the infrastructure and priority projects which are going to drive all the Russian economy. The Russian Railways investment programs provides for an unprecedented growth in investments in infrastructure development until year 2025, 4.2 trillion rubles. We have a special focus on developing the Trans-Siberian lines and Baikal-Amur line. We also intend to increase the throughput capacity at the accessways to seaports, border-based stations, and the northern routes. It is without doubt that talking about the development of international transport corridors, this is one of our main priorities. And the system of Eurasian transport corridors will help us to create favorable conditions to increase the volume of international transportation. I'm convinced that the International Union of Transportation must become a platform which will help to monitor and develop international corridors. Another example of such mechanism is the seven-party agreement joined by Germany, Poland, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and Russia. This agreement has set special conditions for accelerated growth of transit growth from China to Kazakhstan to Russia to Europe. The growth has amounted to 46% over the past months, and from east to west, the growth was 60%. Now, against the background of the successful development of the tripartite project implemented together with our Belarus and Kazakhstan colleagues, we signed a memo on the development of transit potential and environmental safety a short time ago. This agreement was signed in the presence of the heads of the governments, which underlines how important our work is. Transition via Mongolia has grown dynamically. Over the past 7 months, it has grown sevenfold. So I'm convinced that the further upgrading of the Mongolian railway will help the Trans-Mongolian route to develop. We are in direct the dialogue between the Asian and other participators. Transit from Japan to Europe via Russian ports has also grown. The absolute numbers are not that big. It's just 2,000 DFR, but the growth is 36 times. The European track has seen the growth in the potential of the Kaliningrad region. Last year, for instance, the transit that involved the Kaliningrad railways grew 4 times, and the past 7 months of this year, it has grown 5 times. We drafted agreements and rules for transportation of containers as part of international container trains. We have been making changes into rules of Russian customs, and we have been improving various customs documents. One more thing I would like to mention is this digital service. We have been doing our best to make all the paperwork paperless. We are in very close contact with our colleagues from China and Kazakhstan in this respect, in order to do transition to paperless processing. One more thing we discussed a short time ago. Our cargo turnover with Finland is now does not use any papers now, and as our analysis with our Finnish colleagues has shown, last year alone we did not use papers that would otherwise require 20,000 trees. It's a whole forest, and we have been able to preserve it. And if we add to this the time that had to be spent to fill out all these documents, you can imagine the effect that we've been receiving.
Today with FESCO we continue to implement paperless technology into TRAN. It allows to cut the time for registration of documents by 4 days. Oftentimes technology is being multiplied in all stations of the Russian railways accepting the containers. We include Republic of Belarus and other participants. Also gaining momentum is trading flow for the freight transportation, includes transportation, rolling stock, provisioning, terminal and storage and logistical services by Russian railways and the third parties. The shipper in one click can receive full information. And since last year, this trading flow is accessible to our foreign partners. It informs customers where cargo is traveling online in live mode. It provides video broadcasting and radio broadcasting and uses technology of blockchain. Also work on development of ecosystem of digital transport corridors. And paramount objective in the near future is formation of the uniform digital space within European Economical Union. within Euro-Asian, we have uniform rules, uniform platform, and capacity to seamlessly organize transportation process. Now, question: why customers choose railways? The answer is obvious. Because customer needs speed of delivery, price, integrity of cargo, observation of the timetable, capacity to control transportation, and flexibility and ongoing interaction between customer and the carrier. Talking about international corridors, we can say that all parameters make sure that the railway is the most capable. It must be key player in Eurasian freight cargo flows. For longer term future, potential of this market is humongous. According to Transport Strategy of the Russian Federation project, till 2035, transportation in Russia will have 3 to 5 million of DFR. I'm sure that we see only now from today's position. And with every new coming month, every new year, this number will be more clear, and I'm sure that the number will grow. Today's event also enables this potential, and our customers who expect from us, as I said, reliability, competitiveness, and collaboration will win. Thank you. Thank you very much. On this positive note, we'll continue our event. I hope that organizers will excuse us that we'll drive slightly late because we don't fit the timetable. Another point, I have request to be disciplined railway people. I know that next we'll have very disciplined speakers, and hence please keep the timetable and use 5 minutes. I give the floor to one of the global leaders in the area of rail technology, representative of Siemens Mobility, Johannes Emil Heinz.
Dear friends of the railway transportation, dear people who are all passionate about railway and making railway a significant contribution to human society. I think there's a wonderful opportunity in front of us, because the challenge which we are all facing is really bringing two things together: increasing capacity, being safe and reliable, and take care about the environment. And I think it's not a contradiction. Railway can really bring this all together. And therefore, for me, it's very important that we take care about the technology. And I would ask for the third slide, please. Technology is, for me, the enabler to bring this together. Do less, to do more with less. Be very sure that you can use the existing infrastructure, the new-to-build infrastructure, in the most efficient way. And this can be done with new technology, with electrification, and of course also using digitalization, making sure that we understand the condition of the environment, we understand the condition of rolling stock, and we use it in an optimized way that we really can reduce CO2 emission. And this is important that we build these corridors having this in mind, saying, okay, we need to digitalize the information about the corridor. We need to use the newest technology for rolling stock and infrastructure and bring it together, make it work on the technology level, and also then on the customer interface level, putting this all together into operation. And we have wonderful examples, as you can see here on the slide, even on the passenger transportation. If you really have electrified lines, and you can use these electrified lines, then you can really save tons of CO2 every year. And for me, the driver is technology, digitalization, and also doing this in alliance. And all the speakers before were saying we need to do this jointly. Jointly means we need to bring the different parties in different countries, the different railway operators, different railway organization. We need to bring infrastructure and rolling stock. We need to bring the different suppliers, all this jointly in one team, in one alliance. And if we do this with in mind, again, creating the most cost-efficient, the most safe, reliable environmental protection, then we are on a good way to drive towards the best railway systems, the best way of transport going forward. And saving some time, I'll leave it with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I challenge everyone to use this example when you give concentrated thinking. It penetrates the audience better. With great pleasure, I give the floor to Anton Zubekin, Deputy CEO of Sina Transport Machines, as the colleague and partner of Siemens, and he will continue our conversation. Dear friends, good afternoon. I will try to quickly report together with Mr. Heinz, but I don't promise exactly. As distinguished Sergey Alexeyevich said, Russian Railways is dynamically developing freight company. I'd like to draw attention to the fact that we have achievements in the area of the cargo transportation. I'd like to point out the great work that we do under the leadership of Russian Railways in terms of expansion of passenger transportation, including international transportation, by electrical trains that we make together with Siemens. The next slide, please. Please switch on the video. Speed 50 kilometers per hour. Speed 115 kilometers per hour. Speed 130 kilometers per hour. Speed 160 kilometers per hour. Speed 400 kilometers per hour. Thank you. Next slide, please. Today, many distinguished colleagues told us about railway being advantageous in many ways, economically efficient. I'd like to note also that in the area of the cargo and passenger conveyance, one of the distinctive competitive features is the speed of delivery. We, as the Sina Transport Machines Holding, as an innovation company, we bet on speed. We produce high-speed rolling stock for multiple units, high-speed locomotives, the track maintenance equipment, and we showed high-speed flat car for the speed of 140 kilometers per hour. This year in December, under leadership of Russian Railways, we plan to launch first container unit train traveling from Moscow to St. Petersburg with the speed 140 kilometers per hour. And Sergey Alexeyevich, this objective is being resolved by us. Systematic solution that allows 20, 40, 80-foot containers on the fitting flat cars is the key objective, is provide conveyance throughout entire Russian in 7 days. Actually speaking, what the colleague said, Francesco company colleague said that we will attain very good competitive edge for the rail transport before maritime transport. Forget about aviation. Now, as you saw from the video, we work on electric train. with the speed 400 kilometers per hour. We've created joint engineering center with the Russian railways located in Skolkovo town. And actually speaking, the objective is the same in terms of having best available Western technology transfer together with Siemens under the leadership of Russian Railways. In 2028, we plan to create train traveling at 400 kilometers per hour, and this is paramount task for us. Next slide, please. As for environment, I wish to say just one thing. It's that Russian Railways, through the strategy of sustainable development, floated first bonds, also with the help of the environmental friendliness of Lastochka multiple unit. A report says that Lastochka allows to seriously cut, in comparison to automobiles, environmental indicators. It's 7 to 8 better indicators than automotive transport. And now Lastochka transport and have better credit positions in Russian Railways as our customer. Next slide. Anton Vladimirovich, sorry. Please come to the end. I will be on time. I'd like to note the topic related to digitalization. Digitalization is integral part, and actually speaking, I'd like to say that as for level of automation, we have 3+. When the driver is present by the process, doesn't control the train, the machine controls the train. Next year, under Chief Engineer of Russian Railways, acting Chief Engineer Andreev, we plan to show at Moscow Central Ring train with automation 4+ without train driver. Next slide. I'd like to note 2 points. And please think, what is Lastochka for Russia? It's more than 1,100 multiple unit rail cars that travel throughout Northwest, Central, North Caucasus, Volga and Urals federal districts, and 58 existing roads. I may note that the train, because of the comfort level, through the velocity, through consumers' features, acts on 58 existing routes. Also, I'd like to comment that think for a while, coefficient of technical readiness, coefficient of reliability were achieved with Siemens and Russian Railways is 0.9998. Although plan was 0.9997, so in terms of reliability in any climate. Next slide, and the last slide, Vladimir Wolfovich. We now clearly realize the network of development of the passenger conveyance that will be till 2027 by electric trains, Lastochka Federation. We see that it will be 32 additional roads, but I'd like to note that rhetorics so far on table, Russian Railways actively and properly and efficiently utilizes trains traveling international roads, Moscow-Minsk, and together with Russian Railways, we will launch trains to Finland. That is reliability, quality of a train allows to launch international roads. Vladimir Wolfovich, I'm through. Thank you very much. Topic for me is absolutely favorite. However, the time is limited. Now I give the floor to Nikolai Rizov, Director General of the joint stock company Цифровая логистика, Digital Logistics. Colleagues, I'll try to be brief. I'll not talk about environment because the previous speakers noted ecology. Digital Logistics company is not only electronic workflow, it's in the offered mode, helps to register. The quotation of the rates is 1 to 2 minutes. The contracts are concluded, and the feature for a company that we accompany trip from initiation to the claims, the topic of our meeting. Let's say this. There are certain questions that require certain solutions. This is true actually in different administrations of railways. Because of the regulation, we need to equalize technological capacity. As to contain a train, weight of train is not critical. What is critical is the length of container train. At the space of 15-20 in different administrations, these vectors are different. An administration is supervised, but the rail cars in European countries has meters. I can say that about 10 years ago, understanding how European countries operate, we worked with PAC. It's a very known company in Europe. We, let's say, were lagging 1 degree behind in our digital technologies. Understanding how systems develop, we equalized. And Russian railways are equal to European. This is one of the outcomes of having, several years ago, had 2 million DFR. Last year, this number was 5.9 million. Today, total growth is about 20%, and it goes upwards. Also, the cornerstone of this area is the condition of trust to each other and digitalization in different administrations of railways. We work in this mode. Sergey Alexeyevich, we work on this. We work with the corridor Belarus, Kazakhstan in equalization of our technological, technical, and information technologies development. This is where future is. If we can copycat the Russian railways rates with Kazakhstan and Belarus at a level of 1 to 3 minutes transportation documents, it also will be maximum acceleration of the process, and it will be the foundation for the peak growth. It will be peak of content transportation in the Russian railways, not only in Russia, but also in all space of 15-20. Thank you very much. We have expert Kirill Viktorovich Semyon, head of department that in the last years performed revolution in technology of Russian railways, of which we speak, in IT technology. I have a request, Kirill Viktorovich, just 2 words. What is the priority for the Russian railways in terms of digitalization? Good afternoon, dear colleagues. As for priority of Russian railways and digitalization, the other session is heated up on this. I'd like to focus on what we are talking now. Look, if in general we look at what colleagues reported at the speeches and talks, there is burning subject, interaction between different participants of the process of transport and logistics, between administrations of different countries. The most efficient at this time and the most running ahead of time in terms of its quality, rather than sometimes, I'll emphasize, sometimes interaction inside of every country. What do I mean? Look, we are environmentally friendly, we are faster, we use new technology for traffic control, we are applying new technology for building infrastructure, new technology to build rolling stock. At the end of the day, the losses at the joints, at those bottlenecks, as Sergey mentioned in his presentation, the problem is seemingly simple. When the legislation of European Union doesn't allow to accept through customs electronic documents, it means that we lose time of transportation because we need to process documents. We can have wonderful electronic trading floor, we can have wonderful rolling stock, we have wonderful electronic interaction between carriers. We'll have to process paper on border. This is the very story that, in my point of view, at some moment will be the key, because we'll lose our general efficiency. And the second point I'd like to raise is quality of information. It's interaction inside of railway administrations, interaction of railway administrations with federal centers and federal governmental bodies. I may only use our example. The most efficient interaction with the Federal Customs of Russian Federation allows us to process all necessary documents clear in electronic form at most efficient and quickest manner. Sometimes when we clear international transportation, not quality information that leads to additional losses. That's why it's true, it was mentioned, technology of distributed registry, on base of which this blockchain is built, and the smart contract is built upon this, provisioning of the most theoretically clean, legal, transparent, acceptable everyone transportation is the trend that provides also international transportation.
And this is one of the key tasks in the area of digitization of Russian railways that we have been implementing together with you, which is in line with today's agenda. So I'll try my best to be as brief as possible, but because I could talk for hours about it. Yes, thank you very much. And to complete our discussion, I would be happy to give the floor to the main partner in charge of organizing transit transportation, chief engineer of Kazakhstan Railways, Temir Joly. Temir Joly Batyr Koterev. Yes, yes, thank you, Vladimir. Dear Sergey, I would like to thank you, and I would like to thank Mr. Oleg Blazerov for the invitation to this international silent pre-motion 1520, which has already taken a well-deserved place in the international scene. This salon helps to develop international transport corridor transport technologies. We have been a long-standing, reliable partner of Russian Railways, and as late as last week ago, our top managers signed a number of international agreements in the presence of the heads of our states. These agreements aim, among other things, to develop the international environmental friendly transport. And we, as good brothers in one family, we always feel each other's support. We always work in very good synergy. And today, Mr. Oleg Blazerov said from this stage that we need to engage in energy transition. And at that very same time, our head of government was delivering a report to members of the government about the energy transition in Kazakhstan. We have prepared 45 slides and even more spreadsheets, but it's a bit too long, so I will not take much of your time, but I will leave the cherry on top at the end. Now, international transportation in Kazakhstan accounts for 70% of the cargo turnover of the country and 60% of the passenger turnover in Kazakhstan. The annual consumption is about 4% of the electric energy development. In Kazakhstan, about 30% of diesel fuel. The company has been doing its best to increase efficiency. To this end, we have been implementing special emission reduction policy. And you can see on this diagram how the emissions of the railway sector have been going down from year to year. We have been reducing our negative impact on the environment. And you see a reference to the national cadastre of GHGs. We see that from 1990 until 2018, the reduction amounted from 24.3% to 6.2%. This is the share of emissions by the railway transport in Kazakhstan. Now, as opposed to other modes of transport, we can see from this slide, and you can see the reference to the information of the UNECE. You see that the share of GHG emissions from the railways in the US economy and the EU is 2.4 and 2.9%. whereas in Kazakhstan the share of emissions is 0.6%. Now, the carbon footprint. Here I would like to say that, as we all know, it consists of the direct and indirect emissions. Direct emissions of GHGs occur when the locomotive and other similar devices and machines are used. And from year 2013 to year 2020, we have observed a trend towards the reduction of direct costs by 10%, whereas indirect emissions from burning fuels on energy sources, we didn't see any major changes from year 2013. But this is a trend which can be observed not only in Kazakhstan. I think that this trend, as all our colleagues have pointed out, continues, but still the railways are the cleanest mode of transport. So we need to focus on the source of generation, the energy efficiency indicator. So we took the specific consumption of conventional fuel versus the cargo turnover. So it's on 1 ton of gross kilometers. We take out the energies, diesel energy, electric energy, gas, and furnace oil. In year 2013, and you can see this on the title page, the board of the company approved the program for energy saving until year 2020. The purpose of this program was exceeded over the time the program was in force, and after we implemented all the activities, we saved more than 1,900,000 tons of conventional fuels. The savings was 239 billion tenge in monetary terms, which is much more than the 150 billion tenge that we planned to save. And in the year 2020, the energy efficiency of the company was 28.8 kilograms per 10,000 kilometers of which is much better than the indicators in year 2013. Now, Kazakhstan has been facing special threats from fuel, and we have been developing a special sustainable development concept. We have outlined the roadmap, we have identified the plan for Kazakhstan to make its contribution to reaching the global goals, and we have been actively involved in this. And in the face of international challenges, the Kazakhstan Railways has been doing its best to make its contribution to the carbon-neutral development. And you can see on this slide, there are 3 scenarios of decarbonization in the with the outlook until year 2060. Now, in accordance with the first scenario, we intend to engage into stepwise reduction to zero of zero use of coals and gasoline. And the basic sources of energy would not be affected significantly, 37% and 60% respectively. This scenario provides for implementation of various operations to do gasification, to introduce electric vehicles, to develop alternative sources of energy. And that reminds me that our company has already gained experience in raising funding for such projects on energy-saving technologies. For instance, together with the EBRD, in year 2013, we signed and then implemented an agreement to carry out this program. Scenario number 2, the optimistic scenario. In this case, we intend to increase the share of electric power up to 45%. In this case, we expect that we will use electric battery-based locos. We will also use batteries because we're going to introduce EVs, electric vehicles. for shunting locomotives. And this scenario will help us to go beyond 50% of diesel fuel consumption. And scenario number 3 is a deep decarbonization. In this case, we will see an active use of alternative sources of energy, liquefied natural gas, and then hydrogen on the railway transport. And that reminds me that last September we signed an agreement with Transgas on use of liquefied gas in locomotives with gas engines. Transition to this new fuel will be carried out by upgrading the locomotives made in Nur-Sultan, Series 33A. And we now are carrying out a comprehensive assessment of this project. Yes, Butter, please, 1 minute. Yes, we had one more slide there, if memory serves. So, and the slide is thank you for your attention. And my heartfelt greetings to all the participants of Motion 5020. Thank you very much to all the participants of this discussion. I must apologize on behalf of the organization for using the force to be able to stay within the schedule, to stay on time, because we have such a representative panel. But at the end of this discussion, looking back at what we discussed, I would like to ask you to cast your votes one more time so that we can see whether we have been able to influence your opinions, dear listeners, those who are here with us in the audience, but also those joining us online. And what, in your opinion, are the main obstacles that we need to tackle? Please cast your votes. So, can we sum up the results? So, this is what we have. I see that there are some changes in the questions as well. Could we please see the question that we received in the beginning again? I'm sorry, I think these are questions from another session. So this is what you get when you introduce the digit. Because when we proceed from live discussions, from face-to-face discussions, from paper-based work to the digit, this all entails lots of risks. And any event, we have not discussed this, but any event, any change in technology, including the technology of document processing, requires a lot of testing, multiple testing. Unfortunately, we didn't have the opportunity to do multiple testing before the conference, so we have had this laps have had this error. So these are the results, right? Now, look here. I think that this looks weird, even from the... Just one person has had an opportunity to vote, right? Okay, let's do this like this. We must wrap up our session. So I would like to thank all the participants. And I promise to you that we will upload the results of the voting on the forum website, and you will see what we have received at that. So thank you very much to all the participants of the discussion. My heartfelt thanks go to the speakers, those who were here in the audience, those who joined us remotely. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and wish you best of luck with your digitalization and environmental friendliness of your railway transport.